welcome to yet another episode from the Untold. Here I'm joined by my co-host Ahmad Al-Mazeedi.
Yeah, hello.
And I am Hussein Ajouz.
As usual.
Of course, this has to be by now your favorite show of the day.
Yes, of the day.
Of the day.
Of the day.
Anyway.
Depending on the day.
So, today is about speech therapy, which is very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'm not really very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Are you?
We've had a speech therapist before / behavioral
We have actually. Yes.
analyst or some sort.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
And we've discussed such topics, and today we're gonna immerse ourselves further in the speech therapy world, advocating for therapy,
100%, yeah.
spreading awareness, and we have a super passionate person
Yeah.
that's really doing incredible work in Kuwait
Absolutely.
in terms of speech therapy.
100%, yeah.
So let's welcome her on the show
Let's do it.
right after this break. We're back on The Untold, being joined by our very special guest, Mais Al-Tayyar. Welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to
course.
this place and space for experiences and stories.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's start from the beginning. What made you become a speech therapist?
Okay, so initially, I didn't even know what speech therapy was.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just knew that I loved children. I wanted to do something that would make a difference. So my mom, who's in the medical field, actually mentioned it to me. She said, why not try speech therapy?
Yeah.
And that's how I got into it.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
what is speech therapy then, in your definition?
After you've learned it.
Yeah, speech therapy is basically working with children and adults with different speech impediments
Yeah.
and helping them through it.
Can you give us an example? Like, what are the how can I say this? Mostly known things. If someone's watching and
Yeah.
still doesn't understand what speech therapy is, what are the common things that people can hear about that are connected to speech
Yeah,
therapy?
I think the common ones are stuttering, which we see.
Stuttering, okay.
Lisps, for example, language delay in children, where their language is not up to age level.
So that's when they kind
Kind
of
of
like
thing.
learn. Are they late in learning language? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, where their language is, so for example, if they've reached the age of 4 years and don't have full sentences,
Right.
that's considered a delay.
Okay. And you mentioned your mother is in the medical field.
Yeah.
What does she do? What does she practice?
So she teaches at Kuwait University.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then what you mentioned it's the stuttering, and that's the most common thing. Do we know what causes that to children?
Stuttering?
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of research. There's no definite answer, but a lot of the time they say that it's tied to genetics or brain function, brain development. You'll see a lot of time people or children who have stuttering, there's most likely a family history of parents, grandparents,
So
aunts,
it's
uncles.
somewhat
Yeah.
genetic. Okay.
Yeah.
So from experience, how long have you been working as a speech therapist for now?
Almost 12 years.
12
Wow.
years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what's probably in the past 12 years, what's been, how can I say this? Perhaps the most common experience you've gone through. What is the most common thing that people come to you for in Kuwait?
So mostly because I work in a clinic-based setting and I
Okay.
personally work mostly with children. It's a lot of language delay, autistic children with language delay, stuttering, misarticulation, so unclear speech, that
Okay.
kind of thing.
I can only imagine, honestly, like working, especially with kids, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
people might think, oh, it's just speech therapy, you're teaching them speech. But I mean, it sounds easy perhaps, but then I bet it's very difficult.
Yeah, and I think our field is very underestimated because a lot of the time through therapy with children, we do play-based therapy, but it's very intentional kind of play-based therapy.
Can you sorry elaborate what play-based therapy is? Just
So
what
a
it
lot
is.
of times it's just playing, learning through play,
Okay.
Okay.
which is the best way children learn. You know, while they're having fun is the time where they're gonna learn techniques because they're enjoying
They're
it.
enjoying it.
Again, sorry, because your topic can easily be misunderstood sometimes or not clear for the viewers. So can you give us an example, for example?
Okay, so for example, if I have a child who has language delay, I want to make sure that I'm developing their language. So they need a storage of words, they need a storage of new nouns, they need a storage of new verbs so that they can use them further down the line. A way we can learn to play to develop these skills is through something, for example, we can call functional play.
Okay.
So introducing them to daily objects, daily actions through playing, through dolls and through houses and through let's bathe the baby, let's dry her, let's cook, just that kind of thing. Role playing also is fun for kids.
That's interesting.
It's like
Yeah.
you know that because my nieces now they have these little dolls, right? But it's
Yeah.
like they do the hair of that
Right,
kind of like
right.
doll and so on. So and I think I always looked at it as, oh come on, like stop playing with the dolls and so on.
But you know, this is where it's different when it comes to speech therapy. So at home when they're playing, usually they're playing on their own. Usually there's no one really talking them through what's happening. That's why I say during speech therapy, it's very intentional play. You know, we're sure to always talk to them about what's happening, talk to them in a certain way, so the words will stick in their minds.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll throw in a different example here, and you tell me what would the solution be. I have a family member who suffers from stuttering, but it wasn't from beginning. At age 4 or 5, he was almost normal in the way he talks, but he got stuck in an elevator. And ever since then, he started stuttering. And he gets like long stutters sometimes. So what would be the solution? And is there a solution?
So this is very common actually for stuttering to start to appear after a trauma.
How does that correlate and disable someone's ability to speak properly?
The trauma.
The
It's
trauma.
a shock to the
It's the
brain,
shock to
and
the
for
brain.
some people, the response is that they start stuttering, be it for a genetic reason or for whatever else reason. It happens to some people. It depends from case to case. It's
Case
a
to case,
different
yeah.
kind of technique. Usually we see how the child or the client in general is talking. Do they talk very fast? Do they have very strong blocks, which is when usually they'll describe it as, I feel like the word is stuck, it's not coming out, or what kind of stuttering they have. And based on that, we'll use different techniques.
So there's no specific age then for speech therapy. Like so anyone can. Like you must see people
Yeah.
from. What's the earliest you've seen?
As early as a year and a half, I've had some kids
Wow.
come in, and I
That
think
is
it's
very,
the
very
best
early.
because early intervention is very important.
About a year and a half, what's with the kids talk at that point? Just saying words,
So
right?
before children talk, you have to understand there's a lot of things that come before speaking. There's things that we call pre-linguistic skills, which are basically, you know how we learn eye contact, we learn to play with another person, we learn what a smile means. These things are very important leading up to language.
Okay.
And so, yes, by a year, children should have their first few words. So we need to start working on giving them that receptive language, that stored language, in order for them to start expressing themselves.
So I guess what are things to look out for a 1-year-old to a 2 that would urge us to bring the child to someone like you? What's things to notice?
So if we say, for example, one-year-olds should have a good eye contact.
Yeah.
They should respond with a smile. They may start to understand, you know, this is mama, this is baba, waving,
Right.
goodbye. These kinds of
These kind of
interactive.
things. Okay.
They're very simple
games.
things, but I think parents you can easily overlook them sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you'd actually not notice them. Do you feel that the world of kind of like, you know, social media and using your phone and so on for kids, is it affecting or changing anything?
Definitely.
It does.
Definitely. Too much time on any kind of electronic, be it television or iPad, phone. As we say, kind of like sucks the child into a different world.
Absolutely.
So much light, different noises. So, you know, trying to pull them back into real life is difficult. So you notice children who watch too much TV or are too much on, like they spend too much time on their iPads, you'll notice that they start to become more active. They pay less attention. It's difficult for them to learn how to communicate because they're not communicating. They're spending most of their time in front of a screen.
Staring at a screen.
Right.
Absolutely. I think it's because I definitely reflect, I mean, honestly, because again, my nieces, I see them and sometimes I literally beg them. I'm like, please leave the whatever
Right.
you're holding,
Yeah.
a phone or the tablet.
It creates social issues, I believe, antisocial
yeah,
issues.
and I kind of feel, I don't know why, tell me if I'm right, but it kind of makes them imitate what they're watching, imitate what they're playing with. It makes them more aggressive, more
Yeah.
antisocial. And I don't know, just the language. It's not like how we used to be. At least back when I was a kid. At least
Yeah.
we had the freedom of playing and going messing around and so on.
Yeah. I think you learn more when you use your imagination, when
Yeah.
you're interacting with other children. When you're using your hands to play, you're using your brain. The screen is just zone out completely.
Do you know the saying that in psychology they said like neurons that fire together wire together, and so essentially because the more you practice something, the more it just becomes solidified in your brain. Is that the same in speech therapy?
I think what happened is that we've introduced these electronics into becoming such a norm, and they are not a norm at all. So we're entering like this different kind of world completely.
The digital life.
Yeah, so normally we would be doing these things. Children would be playing with each other. Parents would be, spending
More
time with
interactive
their
with their
children.
children,
But
yeah.
it's definitely,
We have this stigma against therapy in our culture.
Yep.
How do you think we can fix that? Advocating for mental health and therapy?
I think awareness is so
Awareness,
important.
spreading awareness.
Yeah, spreading awareness is so important, so people really understand what the core of these delays or issues are.
Are you trying to, like, from what you're doing right now? I mean, as a speech therapist, because you're not taking this as just a job. You're taking this as more of a career and a cause. Are you trying to achieve that in Kuwait to raise more awareness?
Yes, I am. I've started my own Instagram
Yeah.
account. It's an awareness account. I
That's
get a
good.
lot of questions from parents.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so important. Because when you have a family come in to see you as a speech therapist, you take on the whole family.
And how is it convincing people that have no ever exposure into this field? I mean, someone that has never, ever.
So most of the time now, actually, almost in every family, there is a child suffering from some sort of speech impediment. So they, I think, are more willing to listen, willing to learn. If they hear something, they say, oh, I think my child, my nephew, my niece probably has that. I think it's easier now to reach people.
You know how the question you asked about the stigma and like the word therapy. I think even for parents to take their kids to a therapist, I don't know. I kind of feel in our culture it feels heavy on them to kind of like to take their child.
That's what needs to change.
Yeah.
Because it's not like something to be ashamed of.
No, it really
is
isn't.
something
It really
that you want to fix,
It's like early-
Yeah, improve. So it's very important. That
Early intervention.
Early intervention is very important, like you said. What are the most questions you get when patients or clients come to you about their children?
I think they want to understand what the problem is. They want to understand how I can help them and what they can do for their children.
Have you ever faced a case where it's like almost a lost cause? There is no way to restore?
I don't believe there's such a thing as a lost cause, but I believe that it's how, as a team, and as a team I mean me, the parents, and the child are all working together. Parents' role is extremely important. So you see sometimes there's a lag in parents not really understanding how important their role is, and this could cause a delay. They'll need a much longer period of therapy.
Because it's not just the work you do, it also relies on the work the parents do at home.
Definitely.
Which is even a bigger part,
Which
I
is
would
why, to be honest, I focus a lot on parent coaching, parent counseling. They really need to understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to go on a very quick break, and we'll be right back with you on this conversation. We're right back.
We're back on the Untold, continuing our very fruitful conversation about speech therapy with our speech therapist, Mais, Al-Tayyar. So we left off with the parent coaching and all that. Could you run us through a process and what that looks like so the viewers get a better idea before they come to see you maybe?
So after diagnosis, when I know what the child needs, I sit down with their parents and explain.
Okay.
In a lot of cases, I ask the parents to actually attend therapy sessions with me so they can see what I'm doing.
Okay.
And we'll sit down and explain thoroughly after what we did so that they can reapply it at home.
Right.
Because therapy sessions are usually once or twice a week.
Yeah.
The rest,
The rest
of their
of the
time,
work they need to do it at home.
And I need the child to come from session to session remembering what they learned.
Of course. I'm very curious about this. So the child comes to you, right? And he sits in front of you. And we know that children can find it really hard trusting others sometimes. So how do you break that ice between you and the child?
And establish that trust.
So this is usually my first goal, building rapport with the child. Just letting them feel at ease. I'll ask the parent, what's their favorite toy? What do they enjoy playing with? Would they maybe feel more comfortable if you're present? In some cases, it's better to have the parent present in the session.
And certain cases where they shouldn't be there.
Where they shouldn't be there.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, perhaps at the start, the parents should be there, and then slowly, it's like slowly, so that the trust can be
trust
stronger
can be
between you
You
and the
have
child.
some children who are already used to like a nursery or school setting, so they're fine.
So they're fine.
They'll come in and play.
There are
and-
some children who are too attached, so there's that.
So if their parents come in, they're clinging to their
Right.
mom and crying.
Yeah,
It makes it more difficult.
yeah.
How do you deal with? Because you said you do so much of the job, but then the rest of the job has to be done by the parents at home. How do you deal with it when the parents are not supportive and they're not actually doing their job at home?
Yeah.
They're doing the exact opposite.
Or
Destroying
not
your
doing
effort.
anything. Well, maybe they're not doing anything.
Not doing it. No, I mean,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Fair enough. They're not putting the effort.
I think a lot of parents think, they're in speech therapy, so that's all they need. And yes, they will improve with just speech therapy, but if you want them to improve faster and to the level that you want, they need to be working. So I constantly stress the importance. I'll say, like, we're here, we should be here. You need to be doing more of this. Do you remember what we talked about? Let's go over it again. Sometimes I'll have parents video themselves with their kids working with them at home to make sure that, because sometimes, when you explain something, it's misunderstood. Sometimes you need to either explain it like visually,
Right.
or you need to see what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would definitely be taken for granted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you perhaps share with us on the Untold a success story you've had with one of your children that you
Yeah.
trained and had speech therapy with?
So years and years ago, I had a girl who came to me when I was, I'd say, a fresh speech therapist.
Okay.
And she was 3 years old. When she came in, we actually thought that she might have autism because there was no eye contact. She was in her own world completely.
She's probably just
Almost
shy.
like what you would call almost like a hopeless case.
Okay.
Wow.
But I worked with her. Her mom was very hands-on. Her mom made a lot of the difference.
Nice.
And eventually, she got to the point where she was fine. She's attending a normal school now.
What was her
Nice.
issue, though?
So she had language delay, but when
Okay.
she'd come to me, even her pre-linguistic skills, her pre-speaking skills
Yeah. Yeah.
were very poor.
yeah,
And she
yeah.
was 3 years old. Keep in mind, by 3 years old, she should have sentences.
Right.
She should be able to ask questions. She had none of that.
And what period of time you took with the child until you saw improvement?
I think it took about 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months.
It took some time.
And did it reach a perfect level in the end? A normal level?
She's attending a private school now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
she's actually in grade 5. She's doing well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as you said, I mean, there's definitely hope for everyone.
There is absolutely.
It always fascinates me how kids can like learn a lot, and honestly, sometimes they can outsmart us. Like my niece did this funny thing. So recently, she had to change schools, so she went to the entrance exam, and she didn't want to change schools. You know what she did? She intentionally answered all the questions wrong, honestly, so that she can fail the exam and stay in the
She
school.
knew what she had to do.
Yeah, honestly. So what I'm trying to say is that this is actually, I don't know if you've ever faced something like this where the kid tries to outsmart you to achieve their own goals.
No, I think a lot of the kids I work with are quite young. They're not at that
how
level.
old is your niece?
She's 8, 9.
Okay.
I do actually have older kids, but they're usually, children with stuttering or other problems. Yeah.
So with stuttering cases, how long would you estimate on average it would take to slowly remove the stuttering part from their language?
So there really is no removing of stuttering.
Well, okay.
It's just learning how to control it. Learning how to control and live with it. You actually have people who grow up and say, it just disappeared. or it could go for a while and come back. But
Interesting.
Yeah.
it's just techniques to learn how to control and deal with it.
Is it a matter of, I mean, well, I wouldn't know, to be honest, but like people that have stutter, is it because, like when they think that the stutter might come, it just comes? Is it like they should kind of like not think about it? Should they distract themselves from thinking about it?
In some cases, yes. In some cases, it comes from a lot of fear. You'll see if they're scared or angry about something, their stuttering will increase. If they're very excited about something, their stuttering could increase.
Right.
So it has a lot to do with, you know, your mental, like what you're thinking or how you're
I
approaching.
think the case I mentioned to you from a family member, I think he's trying to talk too fast. His thoughts are rushing, and that's why he's stuttering, I think. Is that an aspect of stuttering?
So if
talking too fast?
Yeah, if he's speaking fast, that's one main thing that he would work with a speech therapist
is
slowing down his speech.
That's what he needs to do.
And you'll see a big difference.
You'll see a big difference. Yeah.
So that's actually interesting. So could there be, so for example, if someone is ADHD and has
That's the other thing I was thinking.
that would be like complete opposites, wouldn't it be?
ADHD is not necessarily related to fast speech rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then have you had patients with ADHD coming for speech therapy, and how did one affect the other?
Yes, I have. The thing with ADHD is they're not always interested in sitting down and learning with you. So it takes just understanding what kind of techniques will work with them. Yeah.
What kind of techniques would work with an ADHD patient?
Depends on the case,
Depends on the
definitely.
case.
Yeah, but you have to make sure that you're keeping them, you know, excited about what's going on. They have to be
grabbing
interested.
their attention, I think, is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
I've definitely, I mean, I've heard this. I'm trying to diagnose myself now recently. I'm like, I kind of am sensing some ADHD. You know, I'm very curious about this conversation. Anyway, stuttering. So we spoke about the psychological aspects and how certain life experiences, like the one you shared, can actually initiate stuttering. Are there biological reasons for stuttering, where someone can be born with a stutter?
So
you said
usually,
it was genetic sometimes.
Yeah, it can. It's most prevalent in families who have a family history.
So it's more
of stuttering.
common if biologically rather than kind of like
Situational.
Yeah, but
situation.
usually children develop it
Most
over
cases
time.
you see are genetic, you would say.
There's no
Or
proven
not really.
study to say that it's genetic. It's just that you see in a lot of cases
Like
that
they
their
would tell you
families,
their uncle is like their dad had that or their grandpa had that. That's
someone
the
in the
proof.
family,
Someone in the family.
in most cases.
That would serve as a proof. Okay.
Yeah.
Shifting the conversation about you as someone that's working with kids, parents, and it must be a long day for you every day. Like, first of all, before I ask the question, what's your day like? Honestly, once you go to your work, how many patients do you see per day? How many parents do you see per day?
Yeah.
Tell
So
us.
it varies from day to day, but around 6 to 7 a day.
Wow.
And
How long are the sessions per
most
child?
sessions are 50 minutes long.
50 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting, most therapy are like they're booked in for 50 minutes, not an hour. Get that 10-minute break, huh?
The 10-minute break is usually for us to shift
To
over
shift for the next patient.
You know,
Yeah.
breathe, take a break.
People don't know what happens behind the scenes. I mean,
Yeah, I can only imagine, yeah.
6 is not a small number, is it? I mean,
No.
for you to actually see 6 different cases, I'm not going to say problems or cases, and for you to absorb them, take them in, and then, I mean,
How do you manage all that?
is it heavy on you?
I feel if you enjoy what you do, it's okay. I don't feel that it's heavy. I just feel sometimes tired.
Sometimes you're tired, which is granted.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing incredible work. It is a lot, and you're handling different people, different cases, and different reasons
exactly.
reasons causing the issue. So it's a lot to analyze.
Yeah.
And it's just a big thing.
You know how we ask the question to usually therapists usually ask this question, like, you know how they say every therapist has a therapist, but I know you're a speech therapist.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say if you have a speech therapist, but like, do you feel there's a need for speech therapists since you work with a lot of people every day? Do you feel the need, or do you have, or do you work with therapists for your own self to be able to let the steam out?
It's for me.
For you,
yourself.
for your own actual
Yeah.
well-being now.
Yeah. I think I have a system for myself.
Okay.
You know, I know what will relax me. I know family time is very helpful for me.
Nice.
So it's kind of just finding the things that you love out of work and doing them.
Okay. the future, perhaps, of the field? In your opinion, what do you feel is next for speech therapy? Do you feel it has evolved over the years?
Definitely. I think when I first went to university in Kuwait, there was no awareness. I had no idea what it was.
Wow.
By the time I came back, there started to be more awareness. There were more speech therapists, and now it's everywhere. Everyone knows what a speech therapist is. Yeah.
So, throughout this conversation we've had from the beginning, I can notice you're someone with a lot of passion for your field. What sparked that passion, and you continue to progress in this field? 12 years now, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just seeing the change that you make, seeing the improvements, seeing
that you can make a change in someone's life.
Yeah.
That can be addictive too.
It's true, not just for the child, for their parents, for the families,
Just seeing that happiness in their eyes.
Yeah.
Was that you ever since you were a kid, or is this something that came into your life when you started working?
I think I've always been this way. I've always loved helping people. I love that reward of making a change, seeing a smile. And so speech therapy works for me.
So we're coming to the end of the segment. If you can advise people one thing, anyone, perhaps a family that has someone with speech issues, what would you advise them?
I would say don't be afraid to ask, even if you think they may not need speech therapy, even if you think they're fine, but, have a little worry or a little question, always ask, ask a speech therapist, even if it's just for a consultation, even if they don't need therapy, because early intervention makes all the difference.
Well, honestly, thank you so much for the beautiful episode.
For your time
Thank
today.
you for having me.
You're doing great things, I think. It's lovely to see that someone that actually contributing and influencing kids in this way, their lives are literally changing as a result.
And thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with the wrap-up. Well, I told you this was going to be a very interesting episode, and we learned a lot today.
Early intervention kind of thing.
Early intervention is very important. I should actually talk to that family member and their parent and see if we can take him, to see Mais.
Why not? Honestly, I think the solutions might sometimes be simpler than you think. Sometimes, of course, it could be complicated, but really sometimes a specialist like Mais can know the ways that
She's
you would...
changing people's lives,
100%.
And I love that she loves that part of the job. Because that is the most rewarding part.
It's been 12 years.
12 years.
So definitely shows a lot of commitment.
I believe she has even a brighter future going forward. That's all for tonight's episode of The Untold. Tune in next time right here on KTV2 for more beautiful guests and amazing stories shared.